Okay, so welcome. This is our next two sessions are going to be together here. Our first one is from BoodleBox, and Elizabeth Miller is here to talk us all about moving beyond the chatbot. So, Elizabeth, it's your platform.
Thank you so much. And let me just say up front, we have a small enough group here that you should ask me anything, really. I'm I'm game. We'll just talk. I'll do a very brief overview of some of the ways that BoodleBox can support you in HyFlex courses. And then if you're watching this because it's recorded, oops, or you just want to reach out to me during this call, feel free to. That is my email address. And I am happy to take any questions that come up either here and now or downstream someplace. We'd love to talk with you about what you're doing in your courses and how we might be able to support your work. There are a couple of things that I just want you to know up front about BoodleBox. We are in use at hundreds of institutions around the United States. That's just our kind of our higher ed footprint, but we also work with corporate, a strange number of law firms and churches. No idea how they've kind of stepped into the party, but we'll talk to anybody about anything. So we've got a platform that was really built from the ground up for teaching and learning, but also has really rich applications for staff work and for project work and teams working together. So we're happy to talk with you about whatever use cases you have that you want to discuss. There's probably somebody in the platform right now doing that thing, and happy to talk about that. There are a couple of things that we've been concerned about, and so have tried to build solutions for. One is that there is simply inequitable distribution of just the horsepower that AI can bring. And we've got, I see it all the time, folks that are using a free Chat GPT installation that then exposes all of your data to those large language models, and that data is consumed into those models. You do not have privacy and security. You do not have FERPA, HIPAA, SOC 2, GDPR, safeguards on all of that all of the time. And frankly, if you're using paid models, you have a couple of exposures. One is it's going to cost you $20 a month for each of those. That can add up real fast. And pretty soon, in fact, right now, in most instances, if you pick up a new seat, you're going to be paying token costs. So usage-based pricing for most of those subscription models is in full force. That exposes you to lots of interesting random invoices, which we hear about all the time. So you've got some risk right now with kind of equitable distribution. It's also very hard to support platforms if you've got lots and lots of different platforms in use in a campus or a school, even in a course. You've got lots of kind of distributed learning going on, and that's not really how people learn. They really don't learn on their own with a machine, they learn with other people. And so having the support is going to be huge. So, what we've done is provided a platform that has about a little over 30 large language models available to you, unlimited chat for all of those with seat-based pricing so that you are not being exposed to usage costs. And it gives everyone the same access to all of those models. So let me show you what I mean. I'm just going to step into BoodleBox and I'll come back to this chat that I'm in right now that I started this morning. You can see 29 minutes ago, and just show you really quickly the models that we've got. We've got an AI US installation of DeepSeek, not hosted in China, and then all the ones that you would expect, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and then some that you might not be using quite yet or know, Llama, which has a very big context window, can consume really big data sets. There are others in here. Mistral is an EU-based model. It's French, and so it has a very EU focus. Web research tools, and then lots of image generators. We are ensuring that we are not contributing any more than necessary to environmental degradation by providing a, a token reduction technology that ensures that the number of tokens that we're asking those large language models to consume, which also consumes energy and water and money, that we are reducing that token usage by about 96%. We can certainly talk more about that at some future point. And then tools that really support teaching and learning in a whole bunch of, I think, interesting ways. One is what you're seeing going on here, which is collaborative chat. So this is my demo faculty member, Demosthenes, and this is me talking with myself, apparently, inside of this chat. And you can see that as we're talking, we're just talking like people. People learn from each other, and your students learn from each other. And it can be sometimes difficult to manage those conversations when you've got students that are working asynchronously. You can do that in a shared chat. So this is people talking with people. And then when we're ready, we can call a model into the conversation. And I did that. I called in Claude 4.6 Sonnet, which is one of my favorites, and it answered the question. So I'm reaching out to this large language model. That doesn't live inside of BoodleBox. It lives where Anthropic has Claude live. However, nothing that I do with any models through BoodleBox is ever used to train those models. The data is retained for as short a period as possible, and your prompts are anonymized, which means Claude didn't even know who I was when I asked this question. So it answered the question, it named me as it came, as the response came back into BoodleBox. It connected it with me. And so here we go. I've got some responses from BoodleBox about this. And in fact, if you would like to join this chat, I will share it with you. And I will put the link into the Zoom chat. And if you click that link and you're logged into BoodleBox, you'll have to be logged into a BoodleBox account, but you can do that with a free account. You can see this chat and you can join it if you'd like. If you want to talk like a person, then you just tell the model to step out by typing that little /, and you can pile into this conversation too. I will also show you one piece of scaffolding, and there are several, but we only have time for a few, that BoodleBox provides, especially for folks who are really trying to get better, smarter, faster with AI. This applies to faculty, to staff, and to students, and that is this. Hi, Glory, welcome. That is this, Coach Mode. Coach Mode appends to a chat. So this is Claude 4.6 answering my question, and then that response ends right here at that line. And from here on is BoodleBox providing a little piece of coaching. It knows that I am a post-secondary faculty member, and it gives me a tip, a trick. It in fact gives me a tightened prompt so that if I want to go this direction, I can do that here. And so I get these if I have coach mode turned on. It's incredibly useful. It just makes me a click better, stronger, faster. You can also, if you want, call as many models into this conversation as you want to. So I've got access to all of the models, and if I want to pull ChatGPT 5.5 into this conversation, I can do that right here, right now. I don't have to do anything else. That gives me the ability to start for my own work, for my students to learn this as an AI muscle that they need to build, and I can model it inside of this collaborative chat. I can pull a different model into the conversation and start to stack bots. That's a way to suppress hallucinations and to verify, validate, confirm the information that I got from any one model. Models are trained on lots of data, and much of that data was scraped from the interwebs. And if I was confident that everything on Google was complete and accurate, my life would be happier. But I know for a fact that much of what I see on the internet is not true, not complete, not accurate. And so stacking models can help me to suss out those areas where things are tricky. All right. If you have questions about any of that, feel free to drop them into the chat in the Zoom. I'll keep an eye on that. Couple of things that you can do with BoodleBox. We've talked about coach mode and bot stacking and collaboration, so I won't spend any more time here. There are some ways that you can actually apply BoodleBox for your students in your classes. One is to build custom bots that are always on for your students. This is three kinds of bots that I've built, but there are lots of others that you could build directly inside of BoodleBox and then set them loose for your students. So I want to look at a couple of examples of bots real quick, and then happy to, as I said, continue this conversation when it makes sense. This is a stack of custom bots that I've built inside of the system. So I've got a tutor, I've got a clinical data evaluator that helps my students to understand clinical data. I worked with a faculty member and we built a tutor bot for his computer science class. That's what that is. I've got a grant navigator so I can really help to think through grants. I'm a visual analytics coach that works with my students to help them visualize data in a meaningful way. So they upload the data set they want to visualize, and it gives them all sorts of ways that they can visualize that data. And then lots of others that we won't go through today. So this is a bot. This is that visual analytics coach that I built for my students. This is the directions for it. I built it inside of BoodleBox. And as much as I would like to take credit for these really beautiful bot instructions that tells my bot what to do and how to do it, how I want it to interact with my students, what its boundaries are, what it may and may not do, I didn't. I did not write all this from scratch. I didn't start from a blank piece of paper. I started with a vibe bot builder, which I'm going to get to the top of this. So that was my prompt, and then I just vibed. The nice thing about vibing is that it is simply an interactive process where it's a Q&A that the VibeBot builder is walking me through. How can I do this? What do you want to do? Who are you? Who are your students? I answered the questions. I did them very quickly, and I wanted something more creative. And then I got the setup got started. When the setup was done, when I was happy with all of the ways that this bot was going to be structured, the VibeBot builder configured the bot for me, and now it's ready to go. Let me show you another example, and then I want to talk about assignments. So this is a bot that acts as a client for a clinical psychology class where I'm training my students to step into a clinical psychology practice. They have to do an internship, and one of the things that they have to do is they have to connect with people who walk in the door off the street, people they don't know. And so this is a way for a student to practice with a persona bot. In this case, this bot acts as a guarded, somatic focused client who's experiencing workplace burnout. And I can just have a conversation with this bot and walk through the intake process in a safe space. And I can do it as many times as I want to. I can just practice. And if I don't do it well, This client will leave. They will simply walk out, and I will never see them again until I start the next loop of conversation. So there's lots of ways to build bots and lots of applications for them, reasons why you might build them and how you can supply them to your students. So I can just have this be an open bot. I can also use this bot in an AI embedded assignment. Let me show you what that looks like. So this is my assignment that I built inside of BoodleBox. Again, disclaimer up top, I did not construct this from a blank piece of paper. I could have, but it would have taken me a while. So instead, I used a vibe builder that helped me to really think through what I wanted this assignment to do, how I wanted it to work, what I wanted my students to learn as they were participating in this assignment. The value of AI embedded assignments inside of BoodleBox is that I can see everything my students do over here. This is the assignment. This is where my student is going to be working. I can see everything they do. So it's not a student goes off and takes an assignment and drops it into free chat GPT and brings me back a product that is very often not good at all because students don't know what they don't know. And so they have a hard time evaluating the kind of feedback that they're getting from an AI model. In this case, though, I can watch my students work. So this is the assignment, and it is an interview with Alex. And now I've gone from a bot that stands alone, that's available to my students anytime, to a bot that operates inside of an assignment. And I've asked my student to have this interaction and then to provide me with a reflection that I can see inside of the platform that I can actually grade inside of the platform too. And this can be something that happens in class. It can be synchronous, but really it functions generally best as an asynchronous event where students are working with AI and learning with AI, but not offloading all of their cognitive effort to a tool where they learn nothing in the process. This is all about process. And the product ends up being secondary, honestly, to the process, being able to watch the process and evaluate it. Let me stop if you have any questions. I'm just looking at the chat to see if there are questions at this point. Okay, good. Build custom bots, make assignments for your students that are AI embedded, and use AI for learning, not just as an adjunct or as just a way to prepare the learning that you're doing with your students. You can do that in BoodleBox. Now, there is more, but collaborative chats, access to 30 plus large language models with unlimited chat prompts for us for seat pricing, not usage-based pricing, the ability to build custom bots that are always on for your students if you want them to be, and the ability to embed AI into assignments so students are learning with AI in process, not just learning about AI or just using AI for cognitive offloading. We would be absolutely delighted to talk with you about how you can get started. You can get started right now if you'd like to by going to boodlebox.ai, creating a free account, and starting to use the platform in that kind of free version. And then most of the schools that we work with run a pilot so they can really dial in use cases and workflows and how to maximize the tools that the platform provides in a private, secure space, and then move on to deployment. And we can provide you with all the documentation that you need to make your IT team really comfortable. I would be absolutely delighted to continue this conversation with you directly. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm at elizabeth.miller@boodle.ai, and we'd love to continue the conversation at some future point.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Elizabeth. Very interesting. You do have two questions in chat.
Oh, good.
I just
Sorry.
put them in there.
Oh,
So
okay.
I know they're there.
Great.
And they have to do with custom bots. And I can,
Uh-huh.
since I have the microphone here. First of all, was if like I've built a lot of bots outside of BoodleBox, like
Yeah.
ChatGPT is where I've done most of my work. Is there a way to bring those in, or would they all have to be rebuilt within uh,
Yeah.
BoodleBox?
Right now you'd have to rebuild them
Hmm.
inside of BoodleBox.
Hmm.
And honestly, my recommendation, because I've heard that question before, my recommendation is that you start with the VibeBot builder
Hmm.
and see if you get something, you might get something you like better. Do you see what
Oh
I'm
yeah,
saying? Like I
yeah.
would, but it's an easy enough matter. It would require a little bit of copy and paste,
Hmm.
but not much, honestly. And then if you're going to stuff your bot with content, you would have to do that a second time. So I've got tutor bots that have my textbook
Hmm.
and my syllabus in them. I've got guidance for my visual analytics bot. So
Hmm.
how I want,
Sure.
right, good.
And so when you build a bot, I saw that the one that you were showing was
Yeah.
using Gemini, one of the Gemini
Mhm.
versions. Does
Yep.
is that a selectable thing, or is it
Yes.
specific to whatever you have?
It's
And
selectable, yeah. So you can pick the model that's best suited.
okay.
So, like, I've got a data analytics bot that uses Llama because Llama can consume really big data sets and keep them spinning for a long time. So, and again, if you use the VibeBot builder, it'll make a
Yeah.
recommendation. Now, you don't have to take the recommendation,
Okay.
but it'll guide you in that selection.
The second question is actually the third question now, is
Okay.
that can students build bots and can they
They
share them?
absolutely can. They
So,
can build them and they can share them. So every bot comes with a unique link that allows you, whoever builds it, to share it. So this is my history bot, and
mhm.
it comes with a, here we go, there we go. This is a unique link for that. I can give that to anybody, and they can take it and run with it. Now, I have this bot set to allow remix. I wouldn't do that if I was sharing a bot with students.
Mhm.
But if I'm sharing it with faculty, I can give them the bones of this bot and then they can modify it how they would like to. But if I've got a whole bunch of people that are teaching History 101, which is what this bot is good at, it's a great History 101 tutor, then I can share it and other faculty can deploy it to their students too.
Oh, very interesting. Thank you.
Good.
Uh, are there any other quick questions?
I've gotten some information about the sustainability and the token reduction. That's
Mhm.
huge, huge, huge interest in many of our students and faculty.
Right.
So as many details around what that actually means, I would
Mhm.
love to have. Just like more the
Yeah.
use 1 cup of coffee instead of 200 cups of coffee or whatever.
Right, right. Yeah. And it really that token reduction technology focuses primarily on, okay, so a large language model is, an embedded matrix that has tons and tons and tons and tons of information in it, broken up into little bitty chunks, right? And then around every LLM is a set of tooling, harnessing. The token reduction technology focuses on that harnessing. You may have seen this. So when you like use ChatGPT, which I used to use a lot, and I like Claude better, so I've thrown it over. When you put in a prompt and then ChatGPT responds, and then you put in the next prompt, it's not just that prompt that's sent to ChatGPT, it's the whole chain, the whole thing. And then the next time, it's the whole thing. And it just gets longer and longer and longer. The outcome of that is very often that you fill up ChatGPT's context window and it starts to get dumber as the chat goes on. You may have seen that where it's like you've completely forgotten what we said to each other 10 minutes ago. Or now you're off in Never Never Land. I don't even know what's going on right now. That's because the context window has gotten crammed. It's like clogging a pipe. It just cannot think well at that point. That's because of the way the harnessing works. That has we didn't build those harnesses, right? That is what OpenAI built for ChatGPT. So we're doing some things to reduce like that problem, which then reduces the number of tokens that are consumed to read that whole long repetitive prompt and to respond to it. There are other things I will tell you. The technology at its heart is proprietary, so I can give you some information, but honest goodness, I couldn't explain it even if I knew. So I am not that person. I am not an AI engineer, but it is the way that we can actually provide um, seat-based pricing and not usage-based pricing, which everybody's gone to at this point.
Thank you.
Any other questions while we're talking? Terrific. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Brian, this is you're on.
All right. Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thank
Really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today.
Of course.
Okay, so let's shift gears here. What I'm going to do is talk about some survey we did, and something we're building into our AI in the moment of learning need, effort here at San
Mhm.
Francisco State, specifically within the courses that myself and my colleague teach in our program, undergraduate and graduate courses. And so I decided to simplify this from PowerPoint and go right to PDF, because there's a couple of other files I want to show you quickly. And I will go through this relatively quickly because there will be a pretty substantial proceedings paper that includes the preliminary results from the survey as a write-up. But for the moment, what this is really doing is when we started designing our approach towards AIs as a student support in our courses, HyFlex or otherwise, we thought, well, we surely need to evaluate this. And so part of our evaluation, especially since we don't see actual student use unless they tell us about
Mhm.
AI, we see gross numbers sometimes on some of the bots that we give them, but that doesn't tell us a whole lot. We thought well, we have to ask them, of course. So we created a survey. And this survey we designed earlier in the spring with the intention that we would design it as a post-course or near the end of the course experience. So we get a sense of what their experience has been in the class. But we also have a version of this survey, a much shorter version that our intention is to give them at the beginning of a course with some of these questions asked so that we get a little bit of pre-post responses, especially to perceptions around AI use and things like that. This is not reporting on that part because we didn't have a chance to do that before the semester started. So anyway, this is what we're talking about, and we're using this in a few different courses. So we'll take a look at the context. I'll explain that briefly. We'll talk a little bit then about some of the results, the use patterns we've seen, how it connects to the moments of learning need that I was talking about in my earlier presentation, and that will be pretty obvious to you. Some of the perceptions from students, just a big picture. I'm not using any direct student quotes in this particular results because this is all preliminary, of course. And then some of the implications we see towards the our use of AI with our students and our overall framework. Why this pilot? Well, we're like I said earlier in the keynote, we're talking about moving from a focus on tool use to learning support. And we want to make sure that when we shift this focus, that we are really hitting the learner's need for support and their perceived needs for support. And we want to hear from them directly what they have to say about that. And so we're looking at how this is fitting into our overall idea is let's do a learner-centered process for using AI rather than a tool-centered process. Not just giving them a bunch of tools, even though they might be really capable tools, and honestly, they are. But from a designer's perspective, let's start with the need. This would be, following any classic design process is really what do you start with? You start with the need. What's the reason we're going to do anything with them? Well, hopefully we're meeting some legitimate need or helping them take advantage of an opportunity that may not even know, is a particular need. So either it's fix a problem or, give them a solution for something that gets them somewhere they want to go. So our survey context, we did a survey with students from 3 different classes. This was all an optional survey at this point. We're not requiring anyone to do this. One class, one of the ones I teach is iTech 315, which is an undergraduate course. It's a general education course in the social sciences area. It's upper division general education. And the focus is on exploring how basically using digital emerging technologies to support the learning process. There's 49 students enrolled, and we had 21 responses. I gave them optional, it was extra credit for them if they wanted to do this survey. And I'd have to say, probably half of those 21 responses really needed that extra credit. So I realized that's a factor that influences who responds, but it was one way I knew I could get a bunch of students responding. And actually, some of those students are also ones who were perhaps using AI, more substantially than some others. I take 830 is another class I teach. This one is about digital learning technologies also, but it's exploring them as in the role of figuring out how do we build instruction, teaching, training, whatever it might be, to use these digital technologies. That one, all 12 students responded. And so not so I'd been working with them and talking with them about AI throughout the course, how I was using AI in that course. And so they probably had a little bit more of the insider's view because these are graduate students and I want them to understand what I'm doing and how it might actually help them. The other class I was not teaching, this is I Take 850. This is a project management for training projects course. And I actually don't know if there any extra credit was given for this. I don't think so. And so that was 5 responses out of 16. But overall, we had 39 responses, and we feel like, especially for a pilot study, this gave us enough feedback and enough kind of things to look at. Are they telling us anything that's valuable to us as designers and faculty member? So overall, this was the breakdown. We had 39 responses. One person did not choose which course they were in. We didn't ask them for names or any other identifying information other than the courses they were in. So overall, we had about 50% response rate for an optional feedback. We asked them about their prior AI familiarity. All of them had some familiar, except for one person, right? Some were slightly, but most of them were moderately or more. Some very, some extremely, and it was kind of clear in the interaction with us. So we had this kind of variety across our students. Some didn't use it at all, AI, and some used it all the time. It became pretty clear. Before the course, what did they have? Had they used it before in the learning experience? A few nevers, all the way up to very frequently. So most of them used it occasionally or more. Some general information. What are the kinds of tools that they used? In AI, it wasn't just the custom things that I had built for them or my colleague may have built for them. It was also just we asked them about these other tools as well, because these were basically some of the tools that we found ourselves using: general AI, custom GPTs, writing or editing, planning tools, including things like Notebook LM or Napkin AI or various things, Canva AI within the other development platforms that they have. And so there was a lot of use of AI, a lot of different uses for AI. Not so much in the planning, and in the writing editing. I think we might have to clarify that, because I think I have a lot of students using Grammarly, kind of like I do, kind of in the background, and it's constantly checking my spelling. And I find that a super helpful tool, because my fingers don't know how to spell. My brain knows how to spell, but my fingers don't know how to spell. And so that's a super tool for me, although I refuse to pay for. I don't want it to tell me how to write. I want it to fix my spelling. Actually, it's my typing it's fixing than anything else. When did they find AI was most helpful? And these were some of the things that they gave us feedback on. These actually, we developed a list and they checked these off, and they could select multiple ones. But planning for projects, planning for assignments, exploring complex ideas, getting started on things, getting feedback on their work in progress or their ideas, perhaps, rehearsing, maybe this idea of, ask me some questions about this, or give me some help on this, or various things like that. Preparation for discussions, even that would probably make more exploring content. And so these are things that we identified that are, they either a clean match to our moments of learning need, or can be connected to one or more of them. So it was good for us to see they're using this for a variety of things. Now, when we look specifically at some of the more closer connections for orientation, about a third of them were using it for orientation. This would be like course orientation, perhaps big picture, sense making, understanding the concepts, rehearsing, like maybe practicing ideas in classes, in terms of assignment generation, getting unstuck when they're unsure about what to do, or making revisions. One of the tools that I have in both of the courses I teach is a peer review partner. I may have mentioned this, or I've talked about it a lot over the last year and a half. It's one of the first ones I built because I thought it'd be one of the most useful ones for them to use with their assignments. I tell them you can upload my rubrics and the assignment descriptions in the protected environment, or outside of the protected environment. That data, you can share this. I don't mind that being shared. But if you're going to use it outside of our protected environment and you're going to use your draft, you should know what that means as far as your data being shared. We also talk a little bit about this just in general at the beginning of the class. I also give them opportunities to go through an AI literacy course that the university system has built for students. I give them extra credit for that as well. I can't require them to do it. At least I haven't required them to do it. I may start. Um, but I don't want to disadvantage some of the students who are refusing to use AI by making them think like I expect them to use it.
Mm.
So anyway, that can hopefully help them understand, when you're sharing files, this is what you have to do. And I tell them, if you're going to share any of the stuff from the course, if I haven't explicitly told you you have permission to do this, then you should ask me before you send anything up into these environments. And you should do that for everyone that anything that you're trying to share that's not yours. Some of the perceived learning impact, well, they're telling us that they found that it was acting more supportive. So as far as it didn't not replacing their thinking, that they helped them make better decisions about using AI. They were learning as they use the tool. They learn more about how it helps them and maybe how it's not a help, right? And I think this is an important thing for the process of using it within kind of a protected or at least a constructed learning environment can be really insightful for them. Especially, these are all students who are working on understanding how new tools like this can help with the learning process, whether they're undergraduate or graduates. And so I think that's very useful for them. And most of them said that it helped them develop some clearer thinking about the concepts and the things that we were covering over in the class. Interestingly enough, we also had some students. Many of them reported that there were moments in time where they had AI available. I mean, kind of had always had it available, but they had specific tools available for particular steps in their learning process. They found, I don't need to use this. And so they were explicitly deciding not to use AI when they didn't think that they needed to use it. And I think that's a really good result. It's good to hear from them that they're not just going to use it because someone says, hey, this could be really useful for you. That gives them more, confidence and I can do this on my own. So that would be something that would be really interesting, I think, to probe in some sort of focus groups or interviews with students a little further. But some of them preferred not to use AI for these. They were talking about avoiding over reliance, and some of them they were saying, testing my understanding. Uh, so so that's good to hear. Some of the things students were saying, it's helpful when I'm starting out, when I'm clarifying questions, organizing my work. I got a lot of that organizing work feedback and revising. And, I didn't want to use it when it was like, I'm, I don't need it to do the understanding for me. I don't want it to do my thinking for me. I want to make sure that it's not overriding my voice. I think I've mentioned this a few times in various talks that sometimes students will not use AI for certain things because it doesn't want to be overwritten. And if you notice that if you're using AI to write something, especially if it doesn't really know you're writing, it puts its own writing in there. And it
Mhm.
breathes kind of AI. You can tell if you've listened to, or read much of that stuff, what it feels like to read that, or what it sounds like when it's doing that, how it reads. Now, I haven't really looked at how well it could adopt my own voice if I've been doing a lot of work with it and especially if I'm sharing a lot of things that were kind of created and written pre-AI, so no AI possibility in there at all, how well it can actually adapt to that. I suspect that if I ask the tool, it's, oh yeah, of course, we can write just like you would. Yeah, which is not true at all. But that might be an interesting thing to take a look at. But that's an important thing to consider, and this is one of the reasons why I don't require them to use AI for a variety of things. Now, there may be some things, some practical things that have no real data associated with them that are really kind of more of a mechanical thing that might be something that I might push them more towards. But as far as the writing process, no. And I don't want. I mean, every time I build a tool for them, it's like I'm not going to build this so it can write for you. I'm going to build it so it can ask you questions to help you get answers and maybe question yourself about what to do next, things like that. A lot of times they said, well, I'm not doing this because I'd rather have the human interaction. This might be in reaction to one of the tools I give them is the breakout, like a breakout simulator. And so, especially if they're working asynchronously and they don't have the synchronous breakout interactions we might have in the synchronous path of our class, this is especially important, I think, in the HyFlex environment. Um, I give them that tool to do that. And sometimes I'll give them that option even in the synchronous, if you want to use the tool, go ahead, try it out. In part because I want to get their experience from them. But a lot of them are, they clearly have many of them at least have a real value for the human interaction piece of that. All right, and of course, making the final decisions about what they're doing as far as their learning process, whether it's an assignment, activity, a discussion, etc. Basically, what we're finding is that um, when we're designing it for the learning support at particular moments in the course, in the learning arc, sometimes this is a general tool that's, hey, this is always available to you. Here's when you might find it, interesting to use, helpful to use if you have these kinds of questions, or more specifically, especially assignment directed. We're finding that we're getting a lot of use. We get some students who don't use it, and students seem to be learning when not to use it, at least some students. And I feel like the more conversations that we can have in the classroom or in the class space about how AI is being used and how it's not being used and the particular advantages or disadvantages, I think overall this is going to help our students learn how to use this responsibly and essentially for them to continue to personalize their use of AI in ways that are more supportive for them because their particular use of AI is going to be different than my use of AI. It's going to be different from anyone else's use of AI. And for a variety of reasons, I think it's one of those things that's ultimately, hopefully, very personalizing, even though, we've got the continual challenges of, interacting with AI and the kind of homogeneous output sometimes it brings us. But we're really trying to get the point where we're getting to the learning process. I did a blog series on the community and actually the slides that I share for this and in the presentation, the proceedings file will have a link to a PDF about this. But on the blog at the HyFlexLearning.org place, I do like an 8-point series on the whole idea of AI in the moment of learning need, and of course that you can connect with me anywhere through email, through LinkedIn. Yeah, interesting. And at HyFlexLearning.org. Yeah,
Look at it.
that is a fresh typo from last night. I guess I sat over that. Now there. The survey is available. The survey will be an appendix in the proceedings, and so we're willing to share this. But it basically has about 25 questions. It's a little bit on the long side, but I think that when it's provided to students framed in a particular way, it's still likely to get it. And I think they're easy to basically easy for them to do. So well, it's a little longer than I thought I would want. I think we've got a good set of questions, and we're going to use a subset, about 8 or 10 of these, for the kind of the beginning of course response too. And then the final version. This is the kind of the first draft of the proceedings paper. It goes through and talks much more about the various types of grouping questions together and gives more specifics like you would expect with numbers and eventually I put some charts in here. I haven't just worked on those yet. We just started in analyzing this like a week ago after the semester finished up. So that's all the time we have for this, really, unless there's a specific and relatively quick question.
Okay, so I have a question.
Sure.
Can you say more about, you said that you have students who simply refuse to use AI altogether. I'm not sure this is direct to your survey, but can you say more about that? What's the reasoning?
Yeah.
I know what I've heard, but I'd love to hear what your students are saying.
Well, two things. Students will sometimes refuse it for particular tasks, especially in the writing process. And
Mm,
oftentimes, those are students who are concerned that if they use AI to kind of support their writing process, it's going to overwrite their voice. And
yeah,
oftentimes, these are strong writers already. So they
right.
don't really need to use AI.
Mhm,
And they appreciate their voice, they know their voice, and they want it to be expressed. And so that's one group of students. And then there's another group of students that are just opposed to the use of AI overall in general,
mhm,
because of the environmental ethics or
mhm,
perhaps the corporate ethics, that have, political and social implications. And I leave space for them for that. And so what I try to do, if there's an assignment, none of the assignments I use require them to use AI. And
mhm,
so even when I give them a tool, if I can, I try to give them maybe a practical way of following the process the tool would take them through,
mhm,
without having them to use AI. So, for example, it could be like a series of questions, because the AI is going to ask you these questions if you have questions about how do you get started on this assignment, this digital story assignment. Well, rather than kind of having a long, robust explanation of all of that, all that everybody has to look through in the assignment, maybe it's there for if you want it. Here's a way to step through this. And
yeah,
maybe it could be an interactive spreadsheet or like a Google sheet or something like that that would give them some sort of output, but I haven't built that kind of thing. It's really more of a series of questions. So
interesting.
those are the two things.
Okay, yeah. All
It,
right.
it really leads to really interesting conversations too,
Sure.
especially
Yeah.
when that undergraduate class I have, I said, look, you don't have to use AI, but you have to be willing to explore it and read about it and
Yeah.
consider it and then have discussion interactions all about AI because I have to say 50, even though it was not designed this way, 50% of our class discussions were about the use of AI in particular ways to
Yeah.
support the learning process. Or the ethics. I mean, social sciences, we talk about ethics and risk and
Absolutely.
responsibility and
Mhm.
data privacy and various things. And how do you get an organization to adopt or not to adopt?
Mhm.
Those kinds of things. So it's been pretty fascinating. It's like keeping me from retiring, as a matter of fact. Lord knows.
Are
Yeah.
those, I'm sorry, we can continue this offline, but are those students kind of looking forward to working in jobs that don't have AI in as part of their work life?
Well, I think I don't know. From their faculty advisor perspective, I would say it's okay for you to have that stance here. You're probably going to find yourself leaving here and not being able to make that choice, but my job is not to manage that for you.
Sure. Yeah,
And
I
you
just didn't know
you
if there was
as
a
long as
connection.
you know the decision you're making, and
Sure.
honestly, I would suspect that many of those students who are ethically opposed, I think that some of them might possibly be using it outside of class for other things. Why? Because they find that they can get something done like that, or they can get something done they couldn't do another way, and it
Yeah.
just happens to be the tool that works for them. But I don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
don't want
think
to
there's
question their
I think
ethical
there's
commitment.
three reasons on our campus. You've
Okay.
mentioned some of them already. It's the corporate ethics is a big one.
Yep.
Sustainability is huge. And then the third one is fear of being accused of plagiarism or cheating.
Yep. That's the one I hear. Like that's the big one that we
Right.
hear as we're kind of because we have this as you might imagine all the time. Um, is I don't want to be a cheater and I don't know
Yeah.
where the line is. So I'm not going to go anywhere near
Yeah.
where the line might be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in this survey, we did not try to distinguish between using tools within our system and tools outside of our system because we knew going in that the majority of our students use AI tools that are not part of the university provided system. Like 85 to 90% of them are using AI in their coursework, but only about 15 to 25% roughly are actually using it within the environment, the protected data environment that we created for them. And why? When we ask them why, this is like a system-wide survey. So it's not just San Francisco State students. They
Right.
typically say, well, because we don't know what you're tracking. We don't
Yep.
know
We
what,
think,
we don't know what data, we know what data we're putting in, but we don't know how you're using it. And yeah, you say this, but, I don't know.
are we
Maybe
being surveilled? Right. We do not want
exactly.
to be
That's exactly. And,
surveilled.
and,
Yeah.
and part of that is not what are we doing with their data? It's, are you going to catch me using AI in a way that you told me I can't use it, like
Yeah.
to draft
Exactly.
my paper?
Yeah.
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 So I don't know what to do about that other than to try to give them really cool tools that work really well to
Yeah.
help them develop that great paper they want so they can get the grade, but also they could recognize, oh, I'm actually learning through this. How cool
Yes.
is that?
See the
Yeah.
value. Yeah.
My
Absolutely.
colleagues in the creative writing area or the composition, all right, they working really hard on developing, custom GPTs or things like that to
Hmm.
support students in the drafting process. That
Hmm.
then they're trying to build into their assignments that students actually have to show the
Show
work of
your
their
work.
drafting, and
Yeah.
so they're making it so that's harder not to use it. I haven't talked to them about that, their choice around that, but the fact that they want to make it transparent, and so students can see how they're learning how to write through using a tool like this.
Yeah. Yeah. The process,
Yeah,
not the product,
that's
ultimately.
right. Yeah. Well, thank you much for your attention. And I know that if you want to follow up with me afterwards on any of this, you can find my email lots of places. Or if you're watching this as a recording, you can also find us through all sorts of links as well. All
Perfect.
right.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks,
All right.
Dan.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
You.
And no,
Bye.
our next session, I think, starts at the top of the hour with a different link. Won't be on this link.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye now.